I welcome you all to the fifth edition of Leadership Talks. We have with us Mr. Ashok Ramachandran. He is the President and CEO of Snidler India. He is an Economic Times 40 under 40 business leader to look out for. I welcome you, sir. Please enlighten the students of Vishakhapatnam with your knowledge and experience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. And it's really a pleasure to be talking to all of you, though I cannot see you, but I hope I can feel everyone's energy here. So, what I'm going to be doing to make sure that I can feel your energy, we're going to be using the chat box a little bit to show how you feel. So, if you're feeling awesome, I want every one of you to type awesome on the chat box. And I want to see as many as possible so that we can get some energy for me as well and that I can give back to all of you. Right? Great. So, anyways, as you got the introduction, I'm sure some of you may have checked out about myself. My name is Ashok Ramachandran, but popularly been called Ash for the last, I don't know, 12 years since I moved to Australia, in fact. And I'm currently the CEO and president of Schindler India and South Asia. And been in India for about a year and a half. So we'll talk about my journey and stuff during the course of today's session. I hope everybody can hear me. If you do have any issues in between, please do let's speak up or just message on the chat box, and I will accordingly adjust myself. So before I start, I wanted to ask a question, which you can reply in the chat box as well. How many of you have truly heard of Schindler before you heard about this talk with me? And it's okay if you say I don't know, because it's not an uncommon answer. But I'm a bit keen to understand how many of you really had heard about Schindler. So if you have heard of Schindler, say yes. If not, say no. Just type it up before meeting me, before knowing about. Okay, so good to see more of yeses and some no's as well. The next question I had was, how many of you have always thought that Schindler is Schneider or Schneider is Schindler? Again, yes if you thought Schindler was Schneider, and no if it was different. Okay, so that's good to know more no's. But I can tell you that Schneider made a corporate video just before lockdown around January, and it's a really funny video to watch because the first 10 seconds they have mentioned how Schneider is not Schindler. So it looks like people always mistake one for the other, and it is not uncommon. So just a bit of a teaser for everyone before we get started. So on that note, I'm going to start my session. I call it managing change for obscene success. Of course, we will talk about resource management. We'll also speak about managing during a crisis during COVID. So I welcome all of you, of course, with the Q&A as well. So I'm going to talk about my constant trust or my constant interactions with challenging status quo. The first status quo starts off with this statement: your son is a talented musician. I'm not sure if anyone of you got a chance to watch my Instagram video, which I did with Madhushree, the famous Bollywood singer. If you haven't, I do encourage you to check it out. That's it's an interesting session. It just happened about a few weeks ago. So just to take you all back, my life. I was born in a very typical traditional South Indian Tamil Brahmin family. Um, I'm saying this not because I want to mention I'm South Indian, but because there is a stereotype about this particular sect of people. And if any South Indians are here, which I guess many of you would be, you would know that education is very important. So, my parents sent me to the best school, and it so happened that my interest was a lot more into music and singing than anything else. So I was very active as a singer. I started training under a classical as a classical musician very young, when I was about 5-7 years old, and I learned for about 14 years. And by the time I was in my year 9 and year 10 board exam times, I was extremely busy performing. I was very busy recording, giving out, attending competitions and stuff like that. And it was an interesting time during those times. So what so I went to a CBSE school. I went to one of the top schools in Chennai. I was in living in Chennai, and my parents were just a typical middle class family. So nothing, not too much money and stuff. Always knew the value of money. Always knew what is tough times. And I had a older sister, a very successful older sister. So there was constant comparisons in the families and in schools about how my sister was better than me and how I wasn't as good, etc. So always was this issue of whether I should pursue a career in music or should I pursue a career in education or studying. So it was 11th standard. I took science group, not something that I should have done because when I finished my year 10, I passed with about 88%. I mean, it looks like a nice marks, but in my school, most of my friends were at 98, 99%. And I still managed to get science. I don't know why I took science because I wasn't interested, though I didn't know it at that point of time. I started engineering my 11th, and first time in my life, I would say, I failed in an exam. I failed my chemistry exams, and my teachers were really giving up on me, saying that, Ashok, honestly, I don't think you're getting it. And I still remember my physics teacher telling my mom that your son has no hope of coming up in life. He can't even pass exams. So this was the first challenge that I faced as a student in school, not able to do well. Another important thing that happened during that time was I was a big victim of being bullied. I was a child bully victim as I grew up, mainly because I was never very good at sports. I used to play a lot of sports, but I was never super talented. And it came to a point where I used to hate the PT sessions in school. And I used to miss the PT sessions, giving some excuses. So there was a lot of scars as a child, as a student in school, that made me feel that I wasn't very good. I thought that I'm just average and I'm going to be struggling in my life. Moving on to the next status quo. Can we click on the PowerPoint, please? The next status quo that I had to challenge was US is a place to work for engineers. So you can imagine after studying in school, struggling with physics and chemistry, if I had gone on to take up engineering as my bachelor degree, that was probably the biggest mistake of my life. And I did that. I did that mistake. I have a good friend who I can blame for. I had a classmate called Vinod in school who insisted that I do engineering. And I should have been wiser, I felt, but I didn't. I went to the herd mentality, and I think a lot of us do that. Our friends are doing something, we also feel doing the same. And I did the same mistake, and I joined engineering. When I joined engineering, I was the only person from my school in that specialization. I took instrumentation control engineering. I don't know how many of you have heard of instrumentation control engineering. Can you just say yes if you've heard of instrumentation control engineering? Okay, thank you. So quite a lot of yeses there. It's a very tough subject. It has a mix of everything. It has chemical, it has mechanical, it has electrical, electronics, and the reason I took instrumentation is because I did not get any admission through the entrance exams. I had to pay money through a management quota to get admission into engineering. So as I mentioned to you, I'm not from a very rich family and stuff. So we had to pawn my mom's jewels to go and get an engineering admission for myself. So I took engineering. Horrible 4 years, I have to say. Didn't get a clue of what I was studying. Barely was passing. Started failing. And since I was only from my school, I didn't have any other friends. And I had another person in the same situation as me who had no other friends as well. and we both ended up becoming the best friends. And the funny story was, he had failed in the first year, and I did not fail in first year. So I cleared all my subjects in first year. And because I didn't fail first year, my friend's mom thought I was very intelligent, I was very smart. So she used to call my mom and say, "Can you please ask your son to help my son? My son has failed a couple of subjects, etc." And I was like, walking around like as if I'm this topper in class. When I had no clue then what was going to happen in my life. So come third semester, both of us, my friend and myself, we started studying together. And instead of just him failing, I failed as well. So I started having backs. I had 3 backs in third semester, 4 backs in fourth semester, and 5 backs in fifth semester. And thankfully, I cleared it by sixth semester. But it was a horrible 4 years. So you can imagine that after you fail so many subjects, it's quite difficult to find a placement for yourself. You aren't invited for placements. And that makes it very challenging because you have your environment, you have your society around you telling you you're not doing well.
I can't believe that.
Just a second. Sorry, someone was saying something. Okay.
No, I guess it's
So, okay. So I started off with the whole stress about how am I going to find my life. I finished engineering in June, July, and I spent about a year and a half figuring out what I really wanted to do in life. I was studying nothing. I joined a call center because that was only closest job I could find. It was a boom of call center time in India. And also, if you remember, I passed out in 2002, 2001, the September 11 bomb blast happened. And they were, not giving any visas for US, for Indians especially. So I had given my TOEFL, I had given my GRE. And, we all have this mindset that US is the only place to work or to study for anyone. And if you're very intelligent, very smart, you go to US. If you're not so intelligent, if you're a bit of a dud, you're a bit of a buddhu like me, then you go somewhere else. So 1.5 years I was in a call center job trying to find my life, tried to go to US 2 times, the visa got rejected, and finally I ended up going to Australia. And it didn't make me feel extremely excited at that point of time because I felt that I haven't done well, and I couldn't get a scholarship as well. So I had to again force my parents to take a loan for me. We mortgaged the house, and it was a difficult time. And that's when I started thinking about how is life going to be. So who here has had a very tough engineering life? Yes, if you had tough engineering life. Done. Okay. So, a lot of times, even now, I have a lot of students, engineering students, writing to me saying that they don't know what to do in life and they're still having a lot of backs. And I often tell them that, I don't think people figure out till you're 21, 22 what you really want to do in life. And that's the first thing I want to share with all of you. And if you meet students, please do share this thought with them that life cannot be always straightforward. So let's go to the third status quo. Foreigners find it difficult to mingle in. That's the third status quo that I want to talk to you all about. So I went to Australia, I went to study, and I'm sure many of you or some of you may have gone overseas or you've heard of it. We all have a habit of being in herds. I always find the Indians always sit together, the Chinese always sit together. The Westerners do the same as well. But when I was studying and working in Australia, I had almost a policy that every day I will go and meet new people who are not from my own place, who are not necessarily from Tamil Nadu, from Chennai, or they're not probably from India as well. So I tried to break myself to know things, new things. When I went first to Australia, I had a very strong English with a thick Indian accent. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of courage to beat that and put myself out there. And that's what I did. There was a common scenario in Australia within the Australians that the foreigners find it difficult to mix with them. Every day I used to sit in the office having lunch with different people, and they were not Indians. And all my Indian friends, they used to sit together and make fun of me, saying that, why are you trying to suck up to the Aussies? Why don't you spend time with us? And I was like, we don't come all the way here just to learn and be with the same kind of people. That's the second thing I want to share with all of you. And I'm not sure how many of you have done this. Whenever it's opportunity for you to come back together to college, please try and spend time with people that you don't spend time with on a daily basis. If you're going for lunch, go for lunch or sit for lunch with someone new. Get to know them, get to learn about them. What happens is it makes you more of an extrovert. So all those people in this call today who are introverts, I request you all to start working on this. Being an introvert is going to be a big challenge when you start working. By the way, do any of you here have any work experience? If you do, can you just mention how many years? Okay. So it looks like anywhere between 1 and 5 years. Great. So some of you or whoever has worked, you know what I'm talking about. And if it's been your problem, I strongly recommend you to think about it, about being more out there to network and to communicate. So that's what I learned from my status quo 3. That's how I developed myself. You know, English is a language of communication, of course, but if you speak that language with a very strong local accent, it makes it a bit difficult for others. And it kind of creates an impression about people. Let's take on to the next one. Life in smaller countries is a struggle. When I was working so I joined Schindler in Australia, it was 2006. So I complete 14 years this year. And, I joined Schindler when I was 26 years old, 25, 26 years old. And when I was 28 years old, I got promoted to be the general manager for Queensland. Queensland is a state in Australia. Brisbane is the capital. You must have heard of Brisbane. And I was a general manager for the branch for Queensland. It's second biggest branch at that time. So right after that, for 3.5 years, I was in Brisbane. I was given an opportunity to work overseas. And the company offered me to move to Vietnam. And when they first gave me this opportunity of Vietnam, and I was thinking, where is Vietnam? I mean, I knew it was in Asia, but never heard of it much. I thought there was still a Vietnam War going on. And I was like, it's a poor country. I mean, how am I going to live there? So the company said, why don't you go and have a look? And I went there. I had a look. It was quite amazing. I was quite so shocked to see how cleaner and better it was than what I had imagined. And I was appointed the managing director in Vietnam in 2012. I became the youngest managing director in the history of Schindler worldwide at that time, at 32 years old. And the biggest challenge was I had everyone reporting to me much older than me. They were 45 years, 50 years old. The same thing happened in Australia as well. Most of the people reporting to me were what we call as the white ochre Australians, like regional country Australians. Imagine like a foreigner coming to India and talking to somebody from the village. It was similar for them, seeing me. And that was an opportunity to prove that I was not a young, inexperienced person. I wasn't somebody who was scared. We turned around the situation in Schindler, Australia, when I was a branch manager. So the Vietnam opportunity was also a turnaround. It was a loss-making company. They had a lot of issues of safety, quality, people, and 3.5 years, we went from being the worst operating company in Schindler to winning the best operating company award in 2013 and 2014. And then 2015 is when I moved to the small country. Click on the next one, please. Young people can't lead organizations. This was something constantly I've heard all through my life. Till today, this year in August, I turned 40. So I'm still 39. I became a general manager 32. I became managing director 35. I became a CEO in 38. So it is always a comparison that age wasn't a barrier to develop oneself. And this is something that I broke the myth every assignment that I did. And what's important when you as a young person gets given an opportunity to lead organizations is never to walk around like you're the boss. Never to feel that you know everything. You must behave like it's part of a team and we have a title, that's it. CEO doesn't mean I'm God. Receptionist doesn't mean he or she is a bottommost person in the company. It's about respecting everyone for their job, giving them the opportunity to do well. So I had this constant barrier of being young and not having enough gray hairs, which led me to always make sure that I keep winning. Next one, please. The next myth is about recruitment. I've always heard that elevator and escalator, E&E, is only for the engineers. But I've been a person where I have experimented and succeeded recruiting people from any industry possible. One of the lessons I want to share with all of you is when you are recruiting, please remember that the best people are not applying for jobs. They are not on Naukri.com. They are not on any of the job sites asking for jobs. They are doing really well wherever they are. They're well taken care of by their companies. So you got to find them and you got to look for them. You got to have an eye for talent. I've recruited people from sitting in airplanes when I'm traveling. I've recruited people from restaurants when I'm having dinner. I've recruited people from sitting in a bus next to me, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through dating apps. And that's what I've always learned, that it doesn't mean that if you're in a hotel industry, you should only recruit people from the hotel industry. Doesn't mean that if you're from the engineering industry, you're going to recruit people from engineering industry. I've had people from hotel industry working in my company, finance guy doing engineering roles, engineer doing finance roles, and anything that you can possibly think about. My HR director in Vietnam was a marketing head before becoming a HR director. My secretary, who joined me as a secretary in Vietnam, 5 years later, she's heading the HR for the whole Vietnam business, from a secretary to a HR director. So please remember, when you're recruiting, not to recruit just from your same industry. It's about attitude, recruiting for attitude, recruiting for behavior, recruiting for passion, for energy. And that's what makes a difference. I hope all of you are still awake. right? Let's click on to the next one. The next status quo, women can't be working here in dirt. Let me tell you, this has been a big challenge for us. We started working on diversity and inclusion as a topic for Schindler worldwide. And when I was in Malaysia, we had a field engineering program and a management training program. And people had applied for their jobs. We were interviewing, and there was a particular female candidate. And we really liked her. We told her that, you know what, you should take the management trainee role and not the field engineering role, because working in the field, you have to work on dirt and heat. And she refused to accept the management trainee role. She said, no, sir, I want to take only the field role, because originally my forefathers came from Punjab, India. She was a Malaysian, but she was of Indian origin. She said, my men in my family went to army. I want to show my family I can also do tough jobs. We started from there. When I came to India, we had 4% employees that were women in January 2019. In December 2019, we doubled it to 11%. Today, 40% of my management team is women. It's still a long way to go, but I'm glad we're in the right direction. So all the 50% women today listening to my call, I welcome you all to please join industries like Schindler or tough industries as well, because we want to create more women in engineering companies, in operational roles. And I have lots of examples in Schindler India right now. Women who are running P&L at a frontline management level, managing service technicians, blue collar workers without any problem. And the last one, if you can click on the presentation, please. The status quo number 8, that our industry veterans know more. I'm sure many of you have been hearing this in your own industries, that those who have been in the company for a long time, they know more than the youngsters. So this is about, again, challenging age versus experience dialogue. Also that only our industry people can work in our industry. So we not only bought women, but we also bought people from other industries. Like we have a lot of army people working in Schindler. We have a lot of people from other sectors, like hearing impaired, vision impaired, LGBT. Diversity is a big topic for us now. I want to make sure that Schindler India is a company that embraces everyone, wherever they are from. Whether they are male, female, tall, short, dark, South, North Indian, gay, lesbian, straight, doesn't matter. It's about your work and your performance. So the first slide that I shared with all of you was to give you a bit of a storytelling between my life and my learnings. Let's move on to the next slide. After going into my life in detail, let me show you all a little bit of a global picture and a macro picture. And this is now more relevant than ever before because of COVID. Because the globe is sort of forever changing. And what you see in this slide is the companies that started in 1999 and those that survived till now. Very, very little. You can see on the 2019 slide, there is literally 7 companies that still survived, which started off in 1999. And there was a lot of new entrants. So this shows to everyone that organizations are not in a safe place ever in life. And now with COVID, it's even more difficult. Next slide. The future is audacious. I'm not sure if you've heard of this. It's impossible to fly objects heavier than air This was Lord Kevin, chairman of the Royal Society, spoke in 1895. Can we click on the button? Click. You can see the airlines was invented after that. The same thing happened with Deccan Corp refused to sign Beatles, saying that guitar bands are dying out. And we all know what happened to Beatles. Next. Same thing, Steve Ballmer, Microsoft, about Apple's future. No chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. Next. Next. One more time. I mean, I'm showing this slide to all of you to show you a picture of how the macro of the world changed. But how are we as an elevator company adapting to this? How are the elevator manufacturers making themselves change in the modern times? So we are innovating as well. Schindler, we have introduced the Internet of Elevators and Escalators. It's a new company, a digital company called Schindler Ahead. I welcome all of you to check out about the digital company that we have done. We can now predict before elevator breaks down. We can fix the elevator before the elevator breaks down. We have introduced elevator doors to become advertising space. If you go to YouTube, search for Schindler Door Show, DOORSHOW, you will see what I'm talking about. Elevators can now become an ad space generating revenue. We have introduced robotic installation in the world. We have introduced digital twin to the world for elevators. So this is how we are keeping ourselves up to date and modern.
What if the world was flat?
Is it audible now, sir?
Skyscrapers would
Yeah.
be side scrapers. Cities would never end. Things would look very different. Everything would take more time. Much more time. Spectacular views would simply not exist. Our world could have turned out like this if it wasn't for one idea. An idea that changed everything. An elevated world. Inspiring transportation systems that help the world grow up. Revolutionizing architecture and the way we live. And now intelligence means we can connect systems and services across the globe. So we can all see life from a much better perspective. That's what we do. Who are we? We are Schindler. We elevate.
The video quality wasn't very good. Again, if you guys are interested, do check it out in the social media and stuff. So we'll move to the next slide.
Sure.
So I think in summary, my whole idea today was to give you all a very brief picture about my journey, a bit of a macro about change in general, and finally, as a message, 3 things I'll share with all of you. The first thing is about being agile. Being agile, I think it cannot be more relevant than right now what is going on with COVID. In fact, this particular slide I had actually prepared before COVID. And I'm showing it now because it is so relevant even today. And I strongly feel that agility is what made me successful at a very young age. So it's about being dynamic, being ready for change. And one of the examples I can give you for a COVID situation, a lot of people now working in companies are losing jobs. Now, one thing everybody can do is not to box themselves into the particular role they are doing, but actually saying that whatever is needed for the company right now, I'm prepared to work on that department. So how many people are ready to think like this is the first question. A lot of times, for example, for us right now, we have a drop in sales of new elevators. But the service business is still a very strong business. So I've been telling my salespeople, why don't you go and work on the service business? And the first answer they give me is, sir, I'm not from service department. And this is lack of agility. So first learning for all of you is be agile. When you're having campus placements next year or whenever it's happening, don't box yourself to thinking that you want only a certain company. You want only a certain package. I see this obsession amongst pass out graduates for a certain package. I can tell you that the first 5 years I worked in Schindler, I wasn't looking at the money because I need to build a brand first. Please remember, every one of you is a brand. And your brand is what makes a company pay you what they think you deserve. I can talk to you for next 1 hour, in fact, about how to make your brand or build your brand, but I don't have time for that today. So can you click on it again? The next lesson. Don't be an ostrich. Don't put your head down and think that everything will come to you in a platter. An ostrich looks tall, can look tall, but not always does it look tall. I always tell people, you got to be like a duck. A duck is paddling with its feet inside the water very fast. But if you look at it on the top, it's very calm and serene and forward looking. When you start working, and that's how you should be, working aggressively hard below the feet that nobody knows about it. At the same time, have a strategic view about your job. Finally, third one, please click. Lead the way by example. I have always been telling people that you got to set the trend. Don't be the trend. Don't be part of the trend. Be the trend. Breaking the myth, breaking the mold, challenging yourself, which is finally what I call as chasing obscene success. Chasing obscene success is a word that I invented myself a year ago. If you want to know what does it mean, I welcome you to look at the article I wrote about this on my social media LinkedIn page. So guys, 3 lessons. Be agile, be dynamic, be resilient. Don't be an ostrich. So look ahead, look different. Lead the way by example is challenge the status quo. Break the myths, break the mold. Be the inspiration, be the leader. Don't chase money. Chase performance and behavior, and money will automatically come. But if you can be resilient, agile, a bit of a duck, and be the inspiration, I'm 100% sure every one of you will land with a job. Thank you very much. I'm more than happy now to take any questions and answers. Please connect with me on all my social media platforms. Happy to answer your questions if we can't finish it today as well on my LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Thank you all. I hope it was a pleasure for you all to hear from me, but now let's go for some questions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the insightful session. So the first question that Darsh have asked, I have a very important question to ask. When it comes to be a young leader, how important is it for B School to teach students in being ethical and audacious to challenge status quo with their ideas and suggestions if it's hampering their personal or organizational growth?
Thank you for the question, Darsh. That's a good question. I think teaching about ethics, I don't know whether you should be taught to be ethical, because ethics is something you should always have. But of course, it's very good if the ethics can be part of courses as well. I mean, we teach in Schindler integrity or ethics. It's very, very important. And be audacious to challenge status quo. I don't think it will hamper growth of the person or the organization. I mean, if your question is, if I'm very ethical, I can't grow the company, then it's a wrong thing. You can't bribe and improve your company. And if you're saying that if I'm ethical, I cannot grow faster, again, I wouldn't subscribe to that. Let me tell you one thing. Everything you can negotiate, you can't negotiate ethics. If you're not ethical, you lose. It's quite possible that if you're challenging status quo, that you won't be respected. In fact, my single advice to all of you when you're trying to look for a job, please look for a company that allows you to challenge, and your boss must be the most important thing you need to check, right? But also remember that when you're challenging, don't challenge for the sake of challenging. It has to be something proper. I have seen people challenging for the heck of it. That's also not a good thing. So please choose, don't choose big or small company. Choose a company that has a good culture. Choose a company that has your boss who you think you can really get along with and work with. Thank you. So Ruksha, do you have a question here?
When you are talking about inclusion policies in Schneider, how does HR there ensure proper and acceptable behavior along with inclusivity shown by other employees towards the underrepresented sections of the society working for your organization?
Thank you, Ruksha. Great question. And Ruksha, it's a very difficult process. So what we have done was, when we started the inclusion journey in Schindler, the first thing we did was we did what is called a sensitization program. So we have trained 4,500 employees in Schindler India on a whole day sensitization program. How do you deal with females? How do you handle them? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? Right from the CEO down till the blue collar worker, we had to do a lot of training. Putting a policy is a very easy thing, but making people comply to the policy is the most difficult thing. The next stuff that we are working on is LGBT. In fact, next week, we have the LGBT sensitization training for the management team. It's a journey. It takes about, like, the female diversity, we started about 2 years ago. Now it's better. Still not the best. We are still improving on it. So that is how you do it. Thank you.
The next question that Krishan has tried to clarify is any stuff that the people are using for a long time, how to break the habit of usage of those people.
It goes to the same stuff I thought of as well. But anyways, I'll give you the ideas what to do for that.
Sure.
The theory says it takes 21 days to break a habit. I don't know if you've read about it. I encourage you to read about it. And the only way you can do is by constantly practicing a replacement for it for 21 days at least. Let me tell you my own transformation story for lockdown. When I went into lockdown, I was about 83, 84 kilos. Today, I am 74 kilos. I used to hate not eating properly. I used to love my food. I used to love my puris, my oily stuff. I used to exercise, but could never compensate by eating bad habits. I broke it by practicing every day. After a month, I could now today. I was telling my family that when I see fried items, I feel like vomiting almost right now. I don't feel good at all eating it. So whenever you want to break a habit, you have to practice not doing it for 21 days. You have to have mind diversion tactics. It's all about the mind. It is not really anything else. If your mind feels that it is painful, it is painful. So you will train your mind to break the habit slowly but surely. Get your family, your friends, your neighbors, anybody around you to help you as well. And that's how you do it. If you want more information, I'm happy to share. You can, message me on LinkedIn or any of my social media platforms. Thank you.
Thanks for clearing that out. The next question is from customer. I think that's the wrong name. But the question is, many of these new age companies who were focusing on, or at least pretending, valuing people, but now they are firing employees in this pandemic and 2 months of lockdown. What is your take on this in terms of cultures and values?
The problem is, let me tell you very honestly, let's assume that, so you call yourself customer here, I'm sure you have another name. Anyways, whatever your name is, customer, I want to say that if you are a business owner, let's assume that tomorrow you start a coffee shop and you have 2 employees. And let's assume that you're in the lockdown as well for 2 months. You have no income. How would you pay the salary? You can't pay the salary. Please remember that it's important to protect the company and all the employees for a long-term perspective. Look at Jet Airways. They were trying to protect their employees and they finally don't even exist today. If they had taken action, in fact, I heard from a lot of Jet Airways employees, Jet was paying the highest for engineers. But today, the company doesn't even exist. Well, you also add here that you would probably give out unpaid leave. Employees have to agree as well, right? It's not easy as you think. Even big companies, it's about survival. Last 65, 70 days, most companies have had zero sales. Zero. It's like we telling our family, I have no salary for 2 months. It's not about firing, but I'll tell you what is important. It is how you fire them. It's how you take care of them even when you fire them. If you pay them 3 months or 6 months salary, you give them 1 year medical insurance. Treat them with respect. Always be there for them emotionally, physically. Value them, value their inputs, their service to the company. Charity begins at home. Remember that. If you don't have money for yourself, you can't feed anyone. Remember, when you are flying, they say that always put on your seat belt first before you put the seat belt of your kids, because you have to be safe first. That's the reason. Thank you.
I hope that answers your question. Now I will ask a few questions that I had earlier, and as well few people have pinged me earlier of the few questions. So the first question is, what skills do a general management candidate need, and how will it differ after this corona situation?
First of all, let me tell you my view about coronavirus itself. I think COVID is nothing but a pause button. It's not a stop button. The world will not stop. This is my personal view, by the way. It is not representing my company or anything else. I personally think that once the COVID opens up slowly, you will see in a year's time, everything will get back to its normal. Today, people are all paranoid. So the skills that has always been required, what is also required for all of you passing out of your MBAs. Resilience, handling ambiguity, very important. When you are preparing to work, please remember everything cannot be in order. A lot of people complain to me that, sir, my induction was not very good. my computer did not arrive on time, my phone didn't arrive on time. But that is not, that's a fact of life, you know. You can't expect everything to be perfect. So the skills required is ambiguity and resilience. Third one, and the most important one, is to renovate yourself. How many of you here have challenged yourself, broken a habit, and did something new that you never thought you can do? Every one of you here are privileged. You're privileged to be studying in a college where you are today. You're privileged that you get opportunity to speak to people and learn from leaders. So in fact, instead of you, if your parents had taken a child from a slum and put in your house, that kid would have also done extremely well. Which means that every one of us, we are a product of our upbringing and we are a product of our environment. That is what will make the difference. So the skills which is always relevant is renovate, innovate, resilience, ambiguity. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, it does. Next question is from Namit. He has asked, how do new disruptive ideas can tackle the issue of getting their idea copied or replicated by already established counterparts in same domain?
How do new disruptive ideas can tackle the issue of getting their idea copied? You know, you can't do that. To be honest with you, copying is the biggest form of flattery. It's unavoidable because even with IP and copyrights, you can slightly change things and it can become a different product. So I would say it's not about who has the best idea. It's who can implement the idea the best. Who can really capture the people's minds and sell the idea and make it into a successful business. That's what is the key. Thank you.
I hope that answers the question of Namit. The next question is from Rupal. She asks, which market in the world will be the fastest developing manufacturing market, and do you see India playing a role in it with the local to vocal campaign announced by Honorable PM?
Definitely, India and China will continue being the fastest developing market, no doubt about it. I think amongst the whole anti-China feeling, there are a lot of countries to benefit. India, Vietnam, Africa, Bangladesh, Pakistan maybe as well, and some parts of Latin America. I certainly feel India will play a majority role in this. The local to vocal campaign will become a reality, no doubt about it. Thank you, Rupal.
Thank you, sir. The next question, I had a few more. The first one is, what are the new product line that Schneidler is looking for, especially in India? Considering the situation because of the corona, lips in society were seen as a potential virus carrier. Do you see any product development with this regard?
Yeah, so if you've been following social media handles of most elevator companies, everybody of us have launched something or the other. So we've already launched touchless elevators. So using hand movements, using voice recognition, we've already introduced the systems now. And we've also introduced escalator handrails, which are with ultraviolet, so they clean up, they can kill the germs and viruses. We also had germ killing inside the elevators technology. So already things have come up and things have started moving on.
Yeah, that answers my question, sir. The next question is again from customer. The question that he or she has is, can we have your view on the 20 lakh crore that government has allocated? Is that well enough for India to survive the post-COVID lockdown?
I would not want to answer this question. You know, it's a very political question. I would avoid answering this question.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
No issues, sir. One more question, sir. I had. I recently saw in Snidler official LinkedIn page that there are collaboration going on in Gulf that you have shared. So, are those continuously developing regions that are adding building of gargantuan heights? Do you see an opportunity collaborating with Arab real estate companies?
Arab.
Yes, sir. Arab real estate companies.
I mean, they have to enter India, right? If they enter India, we will work with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question I had before, no, the Harshit has asked one more question. So, what are some interpersonal skills which you think students should have?
See, most important is communication skills. Very, very good. When you talk about communication, it's not just about talking; it's also about listening. You got to be a very good listener, and of course, you should talk back as well. You should have confidence. You should not be scared. Even when you go to a company, you want to talk to the CEO, you should go and talk to the CEO. Make yourself present. Make yourself be known. I would ask all of you to go and watch the podcast I did with the Ranveer show on YouTube, with Ranveer Allahabadiya, the Beer Biceps YouTube channel. I've spoken a lot about the skills for students, and that will give you a lot of ideas. So, networking skills, communication skills, um, not being shy, being bold, being innovative. These are some of the basic stuff I would say.
So,
What a
customer,
student from B school should help
yeah,
this challenging time. I think, of course, a lot of NGO work. If you can be out there giving out food parcels and stuff like that, whatever you can do, sharing knowledge, maybe help out about a school student or a college student who is younger than you in some learning. Whatever knowledge you have, share it. That's what is the biggest help you can do. And more than anything else, please spread positivity. Please talk about positive things and good things. I'm tired of talking about coronavirus, to be honest with you. I'm almost sick of coronavirus. I don't want to talk about it because life can move ahead even with coronavirus.
yes.
Thank you.
Uh,
I'll take two more questions and I will finish.
sure, sir. Sure. Uh, Divisha has asked, will the companies shift most of their working business to online platform, and how can we as employees contribute toward that?
I think work from home will become more, but I wouldn't think it will replace completely the physical offices. Like in Schindler, we are considering moving maybe from 10% to 20%. That will happen. Now that will be more, but after 1 year, I think things will come down. See, you don't build a company culture over a video conference. Like today, I'm doing this session. Honestly, I would have enjoyed the session more in person. Coming to Vizag and talking to all of you, we have a different feeling altogether. You can feel my energy, I can feel your energy. So I don't think you
Yes.
can ever replace that.
The next question, the last one that will be taken, is from Shubham. He has asked, so people often ignore their physical health states while chasing things in life. How important do you think it is physical fitness of people in this pre and post COVID era?
Shubham, I can tell you, you can always, you should always put focus on your physical fitness. It is not pre-COVID, post-COVID. I mean, immunity is something that is important as well. It's helping a lot now. I can tell you, since lockdown started, I started doing a few things which helped. Of course, I told about my fitness journey. I did work on my fitness a lot, so I exercise about. I wake up at 4:45 in the morning every day. Not now, but I've been doing this for the last many years. Now I wake up at 4:45. I exercise for 1 hour. I do meditation for about 20 minutes. I start my first food with hot water mixed with a lot of the good stuff, lemon, apple cider vinegar, pepper, turmeric, cinnamon powder with a concoction. I make it in the morning. I drink 2 to 3 glasses of hot water. Then I have my food. So I think it's very important to keep your physical fitness. And if you ask me when is the best time to start your physical fitness, it is right now. Today. Don't postpone it to tomorrow. I hope that answered your question, Shubham. I wish all of you a very safe, happy, healthy, and a prosperous time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be tough for all of you, no doubt about it.
Thanks
You will
for
be
this.
challenged a lot. But some of the things I mentioned, please follow that. I'm sure you will come out of shining stars. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Sagar, for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot, sir. I'll just summarize what were the learning from or the takeaways from the session. We got to learn about the 8 status quos, and few of them important where life is not straight. Networking with people is very important. Take ownership of whatever work you have and complete it, and make a diverse team when you have the opportunity to. Don't conform to what others say. The examples were of Apple and Beetle that people did not pay heed to, but they came out to be very big companies as well as brands. The final summary that Sir summarized in 3 words or 3 uh, phrases are: be agile, don't wait for opportunities, be the trend by challenging yourself, and chase obscene success. I thank Sir for allowing us to host you, and I encourage all of the participants to connect to Sir on all of his social media handles. And if you don't have noted it down, you can ping me. I'll just send you the link. Thanks a lot, Sir. We hope to
Thank
host
you.
you again, Sir. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Stay blessed, stay happy. Thank you.